Welcome, everyone. My name is Mike McQueen, and I'm excited to introduce to you Heather Sardis from MIT. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mike. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
All right, if you don't mind, start us off by kind of introducing yourself. Give us a little background about your professional, experience and your connections with AI.
Yeah, happy to. I'm Heather Sardis. I'm the Associate Director for Technology and Strategic Planning at the MIT Libraries. So, a big part of my role is leading our technology team. It is a group of 30 wonderful folks who work on IT platforms, project management, our discovery and engagement platforms, our website, user experience design, etc. All of the technology that underpins the work that the MIT Libraries does. And as a part of that, I am also the lead on our AI initiatives at the MIT Libraries. So I know that we'll get really in depth on those throughout the course of the conversation. So I'll leave it there for now.
Well, I just love that. Part of the goal that I have in my book and in this podcast is to bring different perspectives and experiences inside the library world and outside. So I love, and I didn't realize that about you, that I didn't realize that you work with so many people that are kind of from different fields within that are still supporting the library. But that's awesome. Okay, let's start with a memory. For the love of libraries, that's the theme of the podcast. I guess I didn't touch on this with you, but the goal of my book and this podcast is to the tagline that I have is empowering librarians to lead with confidence in the age of AI. I mean, part of the bigger picture goal is, I believe, is that librarians can use AI to kind of better serve our community, especially as it's progressing and the impact it's approaching. So. For the love of libraries, can you share a library story or a librarian or an actual library that has had an impact on you in your life at some point?
Yeah, definitely. I can share all of those. So, and I think, yeah, in my ideal future and present, AI is something that enables us as librarians to expand the reach of our services. And that's actually a great segue into the great librarian that I'll talk about, who maybe not so much a memory as a present experience because I currently work with her. Her name is
Okay.
Erin Stahlberg, and she is my colleague at the MIT Libraries. She is our Associate Director for Collections. And something that Erin and I talk about a lot is the ways that AI can expand the reach of what we do in the best case scenario because every librarian I've ever known, I am a librarian, I've known many librarians, we all struggle with huge backlogs. I don't know a single library where like we're all caught up and everything's cataloged and everything's described and we don't even know what to do with ourselves today. No, we're all really struggling to keep up with our backlogs and struggling with funding changes that affect what we're able to do. And AI holds the potential to help us tackle those in a way that is values aligned and human centered, if
Mm.
that's the way that we choose to implement the technology. And the reason that I cite Erin in this conversation is she's probably the most values-centered librarian that I know. Like I think of her as a librarian's librarian. She's the person that I go to when I want to reconnect with like the truest values of librarianship,
Mm.
openness and transparency and data privacy. And she's always making decisions that are firmly grounded in library values. And I love working with her. And she's somebody who just wants libraries to succeed and wants us to have the broadest reach possible. So.
Oh, I love it. And it's a great connection with AI too, because it sounds like she has a strong value set that connects to ethics. And ethics is an ongoing, huge, hot topic in the world of AI. One of the chapters in my book is about ethics. Um, and I think that librarians in general are commonly like revered as ethical guardians of what's right. Protect, so many people like when they think of memories of their libraries growing up or whatever, it's always a safe place. There's this aspect of integrity I think that libraries and librarians bring. So it's neat that your colleague has that connection with you. Thank you.
Yeah, and something that she always advances and that she talks about is, we have so much more control than we think we do in libraries because at the end of the day, we are the ones that are making decisions about what technology to use, about what collections to purchase. And we're voting with our dollars, but it's our values that are driving that voting
Mm,
decision making. And it's really not any different with AI. Like AI, it's big, it's new, it's scary, we're learning about it, but at the heart, it is a technology. And we already have a long history of making good, ethical, and values aligned decisions about the technology that we use in libraries.
mm.
And if we can just expand that history of good decision making to AI and just build our comfort and confidence around AI decision making, we've already got the ethical framework that we need. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Well,
libraries,
there's a lot of what?
a lot of hope for libraries in AI.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, not that we shouldn't get into this too deep, but that whole concept that our the world's tech companies, the big leaders, the lack of guardrails that they're being forced to place, our governmental guidelines to make sure that they're being safe and private and all that stuff. That connection that people have that are so many people are just concerned about the ethical aspects of that. So to know that our library world is centered on all of the integrity of that revolves around that is just really key, I think. So
Mhm.
okay, let's dive right into like, can you describe a little bit about what life is like in library land at MIT in regard to AI? Like, what's going on? What are you guys doing? What kind of, initiatives or activities are happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we are talking about this, we have our AI governance structure in place at the MIT libraries, and we have not a two-party structure, a two-level structure, I guess, a two-part government. We have
Okay.
an AI strategy team and we have an AI working team. And those two groups work really closely together, as the titles may indicate, to articulate our long-term AI strategy and also to do immediate and hands-on experimentation work and learning with staff.
Mm,
That's something that's influenced a little bit by the tech world, where because AI is such a relatively new technology in the context of like consumers, libraries, organizations, it's not new in the world of computer science, but it is new in the sense that it's newly uh, accessible to those of us that are managing technology teams out in the real world. We are learning as we go, and it's really difficult to sit down and articulate like a 3-year AI strategy when we don't know what it's even going to look like in 3 years.
hmm
So our AI strategy team is focused on just pointing us towards our North Star, setting our mission, identifying the areas that we need to focus on. At MIT, with the context of AI, we're focusing on research data management. That's obviously a huge concern at MIT. A lot of research is being done. It generates huge amounts of data. The ideal state would be for that data to then be able to be used to train large language models and AI. And so research data management is a big part of the services that the MIT Libraries offers to our community. And our hope is to shape the way that research data is created, organized, and stored at MIT so that it can be reused to train AI models in a way that mitigates bias, it has good solid data. So that's one arm of our AI strategy. Another arm is really putting the focus on our library staff, making sure that educational opportunities are available to our staff, making sure that even staff who do not think that their role will be impacted by AI have access to learning about the technology and learning about the long-term impacts on work generally.
Yeah.
Really taking a holistic and inclusive approach to AI education of staff.
Mm,
Another arm of our strategy is our teaching and learning opportunities. So we have a great team of folks that run workshops, classes, consultations, educational opportunities for MIT researchers and staff and students outside of the library. And so we're putting a lot of focus there on kind of leaning into our position on ethics and values aligned decision making and kind of bringing that to the table in the conversation at MIT. Outside of the libraries, MIT is very, very focused on applied technology and applied science. So We, you know, develop the technologies and then we apply them in service of the world's problems.
Mm,
And the libraries has a really important voice at that table to make sure that as we're doing that application and as we're building those technologies, we're considering the ethical implications and the human implications and using critical thinking when we're making decisions about AI. So that's a big part of our
mm,
educational platform. And then obviously we look to our own technologies within the library and the ways that we can apply AI in our own workflows, in our own discovery platforms, and just kind of going back to that idea of how can libraries make use of AI to expand the reach of our services, reach a wider audience, um, get more material digitized, get more material described out there and accessible. So that's the focus of our AI strategy group. And then our AI working team
Oh,
putting all
wait a second. I have to take a breath. I think I have to take a nap here. I can't. That was incredible. And that's just one arm.
that's
Um,
well, that's our AI strategy.
oh,
There's what we're
holy cow. It's unbelievable. I'm so like amazed. I have questions, but I'm afraid if you keep going on to the next arm, I'm going to forget my questions from before. But
okay. Yeah, let's pause. Let's pause. If
okay.
you know
But
I'll keep going for 20, 30 minutes. So
I love it though so much. Let me just ask one quick question, but please don't forget whatever you want to talk about on the second arm.
okay.
Um, First of all, I'm just trying to process the importance of the things that you just said in relation to like one specific thing that I'm thinking about is how you collaborate and work with uh, your colleagues at MIT because I mean I've learned too much about the training of AI models and like I watch so much YouTube videos to learn about how these how the research departments at a lot of prestigious universities across the United States like attract the best computer scientists to help develop this. And MIT is world renowned um, for expert scientists in general, and especially knowing that the library is playing a role in helping future computer scientists that are going to be working on AIT. Like that's just so significant to me. Um, I don't even know what question to ask you about that, but is there anything else that you could share about that?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. I think we're really lucky to be thinking about AI and thinking about it specifically in the context of libraries at MIT because we are surrounded by the folks who are solving the frontier problems of AI. And excitingly, there are research groups at MIT that are doing research on some of the core problems that we have in libraries that we think AI could be applied to and solve. As
hmm,
just one example, there's a research team at MIT that is working on using natural language processing to fill in the gaps in legacy metadata for historical documents. I believe they're working on like tariff documents from 100 years ago, something like that. Like imagine a historical set of documents, you digitize them, and there are bits and pieces missing from the metadata that you're able to get. They're
hmm,
working on experimenting with using natural language models to fill in those gaps. Who was the author of the document? What was their affiliation? And that's exactly the same type of problem that we run into with our own metadata, especially when we look into like the data that is created out of the research that's happening at MIT. A lot of
hmm,
the metadata that's missing is author names and affiliations. So one of our hopes in the next is to build relationships with these different research teams and see if we can take the products of their work, those AI tools, and apply them to some of the challenges that we have in our own metadata. Because then once we solve those metadata problems, that enables us to make all of that material more discoverable, more findable, and it's kind
hmm,
of a nice full circle. And the other lucky thing about being at MIT is we have found that the research teams, the faculty, they are always excited about the problems that we bring to the table. They're always
Oh,
excited
that's
about solving data problems, metadata problems, thinking about the library's collections as a whole and how their work could apply to some of the challenges that we face. So I have always felt really welcomed when I'm in those spaces and thinking together about how to apply the research that's happening at MIT to the challenges that we have in libraries.
oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, one last question before we move on to the second arm. Um, I'm writing right now. I'm finishing the touches on the last chapter of my book that is called the Bridge Framework. So I'm designing this framework about how librarians can interact. There's certain like pillars, foundational pillars that kind of will help librarians kind of interact and collaborate with colleagues. And the foundation to the four pillars is relationships. So you mentioned about the importance of relationships. Can you kind of expand on that? Let's hear a little bit about like the value and importance of relationships and what is the impact that relationships have with what your goals are.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. Thank you. And I love that your book is ending there because I think it really is the glue and the pathway. Can something be both a glue and a pathway? I don't know. But it's what makes it all come together.
Yeah.
And what we've found is we have to be really intentional about relationship building. It comes naturally to some folks, it comes less naturally to other folks. And so if, as just a really practical example, my leadership team in the technology team of the MIT libraries, we've made it one of our specific goals for the new year to be intentional and kind of predictable in our relationship building work, to go
Okay.
out to research teams, to go out to other IT units at MIT, to go out to our peers on
Like proactive.
proactively, yeah, and on a recurring basis and reach out and ask what's happening and hear from them what they're facing and how they're solving their problems. And even if that is all that we accomplish, 1 hour meeting where we just catch up on how things are going, out of that might come the seeds for a future collaboration. It might bring us ideas or perspectives that we hadn't had before. And it's something that we try to be really deliberate about making the time to do, especially in the
Mm,
technology space. It can sometimes be overlooked or deprioritized. But I think, especially at a moment like this, where we're all experimenting with such a transformative technology as AI, and it's changing the way that we do our work so profoundly, relationships are more important than ever to just stay in sync and stay informed.
right, right.
And I would also say that relationship building with our broader staff feels more critical now than ever because there is so much uncertainty and even fear sometimes about AI and the impact that it can have on librarianship. So
Hmm. Hmm.
making a point to make technology decision making inclusive and make space for the people that have concerns and have
Hmm.
problems and fears, build those relationships and make the space for those conversations. That's the way to ensure that we can all navigate this change together.
Yeah, that's so well said. I mean, future proofing is kind of the angle that I'm always talking about, and I wrote a lot about is and building relationships. Librarians, many librarians, it's easy to get overwhelmed in your long list of things to do and to silo yourself, especially in libraries that don't have a team to work with, and they're the only, when you think of all the different types of libraries across the United States and the world, I think most of them, are by themselves. And if you're not being proactive about building relationships with your key stakeholders, and I think most librarians build great relationships with their students, but it's not as always common to do that with other stakeholders that maybe are not so easy to work with. But it's really incredible. All right, let's move on to the other arm. So tell me about the other arm.
The other arm, okay, if I remember correctly. So we talked about what our strategy is, and that's all of the great stuff that we aim to do and all of the things that we want to accomplish. And the other arm is what we are actually doing right now. So what is actually happening? What practical steps are we taking to make that strategic vision a reality. And so what we started with was we have a working team. It's really scoped around hands-on connection with our library staff.
Mm,
And what we started with was just taking kind of a current state assessment of what guidelines are in place in the libraries or around MIT. Where do we see opportunities? Just getting a sense of the current state of AI in the organization. And the current state of AI at the MIT libraries is we've got some experimentation happening, sometimes at a team level, like we've got a team that's looking at applying natural language processing to our search so that you can search in natural language. We've got lots of different individuals experimenting with AI tools for productivity, translating languages, etc. But we don't yet have coordinated sort of libraries level initiatives. And likewise, we've got a couple of guidelines here and there. My fantastic colleague, Katie Zimmerman, is a brilliant legal scholar, and she's done a lot of work around licensing of library collections for use by AI. So there's really mature work happening there. But then we have kind of spotty guidelines for staff in choosing an AI tool for your day-to-day use. So kind of did that initial inventory. And then our first big step, which we're working on right now, is actually designing and running a staff survey. And it's meant for all of our library staff to fill out, whether they've used AI or not. And our goal is really to understand what are people using right now? What are people worried about? What are their concerns? Where do they have ethical concerns? And then what opportunities do people see? Or just more generally, what are their pain points in their current workflow? And then
mhm.
all becomes data that we can use to identify some areas where the staff might benefit from more guidelines, put together a staff education program that's really tailored to the needs of different units. Because in our organization, we've got engineers who are already working on training large language models. We've got folks that wake up in the morning and open up the library and greet all of our students as they come in, and everybody is going to be impacted by AI differently. So we really want to understand the needs of all the different units. And I wanted to pick up on something that you said a couple of minutes ago, which was a lot of the folks that we might be talking to are not in such a big organization. It might be one person. And it might be one person trying to navigate all of this as the sole librarian. So I just wanted to kind of muse on that for a moment, because that was the position that I was in for most of my career before I came to MIT. And
Okay.
it's a hard position to be in because as much as we're trying to learn at MIT, like what does this unit need and what does that unit need? When you're the sole librarian or you're a small team librarian, you're all of those units. And so,
Hmm.
you have different needs in relation to a transformative technology like AI. And so I think part of the reason I bring that up is this idea of a staff survey. I think it's something that can apply in a large organization and a small organization. In a small
Yeah.
organization, it might just look like sitting down for a half a day and talking together about what do we need here? What do we anticipate here? So
Right,
I
right.
want folks to think that it only applies to MIT. I think it's something that
Yeah. Let me ask you a follow-up question. I mean, surveying is critical in any kind of like assessment to any kind of learning environment where you want someone to learn something. You have to like kind of, or at least best practices are to assess them and find ways to figure out what they already know and what they need. When you mentioned this survey for your staff, is it just the library staff that you're talking about surveying, and how many library staff are there total?
yeah.
About at
So,
MIT.
yeah, this particular survey is just for library staff. At MIT, right now, we have around 150 library
Okay.
staff total. That includes technology, liaison librarians, everybody.
Okay.
Um, it's our hope, though, that we can design the survey in such a way that it could be used by other units, maybe at MIT or maybe by other libraries, to just get that sort of baseline understanding of our starting point. And then
Mhm.
if you take that along with the other arm, like where are we trying to get to? What is our strategy? What do we envision? Then you have your point A and your point B. And then the next steps can be how do we get from point A to point B through staff education, through pilot testing different tools, etc.
Mm, that's great. Yeah, because I know a lot of libraries will survey, especially if they don't have a lot of colleagues, they'll survey their teachers that they work with or professors, or public libraries will often, survey their community or their key stakeholders just to, get a gauge on where things need to go and how things should be addressed or whatever. So that's great. Okay, let's talk. I first got connected with you through the ACRL AI discussion group. So can you kind of, and you lead, you're one of the co-founders or co-leaders of that organization. So a lot of listeners may not know even what ACRL is, let alone what the discussion group is. So can you kind of give a little background about it?
Yeah, it's a favorite topic. Yeah, I am one of two co-conveners of the ACRL AI discussion group. My other co-convener is Ginny Pannebecker at Virginia Tech. That said, I think by the time this episode comes out, we will have evolved into an AI interest group, and we will
Oh,
be joined by a third co-convener, Amanda Macula from UC San Diego. So it's an
okay.
ever-changing, ever-changing leadership structure. But in general, so Ginny and I got on board initially when the ACRL president Leo Lowe. So actually, maybe I should take even a step back. The ACRL, for folks that may not know, is the Association of College and Research Libraries. And it is a part of the ALA, the American Library Association. So ALA is the big umbrella over everything. ACRL is specifically focused on college and research libraries. Um, so the ACRL AI discussion group facilitates discussion about the ways that AI impacts college and research libraries. But as you well know, Mike, everybody is welcome to join the discussion group, whether you're in a college and research library or not, because we really try to keep the focus on the impacts of AI on librarianship and make
Hmm.
space for talking about AI and collections, AI and technical services, AI and infrastructure, things that all of us in the library profession all think about. Um, and so that's the really quick overview of the discussion group. And now we're in the process of broadening it out to what the ACRL calls an interest group.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I'm very new to it myself, but my
Okay.
understanding is that it's basically just a little bit broader structure that enables us to continue our discussions, but also host other types of subgroups, other, discussion groups, forums, etc. There's a lot of work that we had started doing to kind of map the conversations that we're having in the discussion group to other ACRL AI initiatives like the ACRL AI Toolkit or competencies for librarians and so on. So the interest group, I guess, just it gives us a little bit more complex structure and it creates more leadership opportunities. So I think what we're hoping is in addition to really broad discussions about AI and librarianship, we might also be able to spin up some smaller and more focused groups so that people can really focus in on like AI and collections if that's their main interest area. Because AI
Mm.
is so broad, it touches all aspects of librarianship.
Yeah, it's amazing to me because you know, technology, the integration of technology into libraries, when I started my career in the late 90s, it's just my district was very cutting edge innovative, and our library role was completely redefined to be more like ed tech specialists. We also had to manage the library, but our role, like early in, that's all I ever knew in my career is the whole embracing of technology and partnering with teachers to integrate different types of technology into teaching and learning. So I think at that time, there was not as much of that focus on academic library world. Like, it started to happen, but um, I feel like AI has suddenly thrust because of ChatGPT and the popularity of it with college students. It's brought academic libraries to the forefront of the world of libraries because that's, I think, kind of how they were, the first contact, and still like it's at the center of impact in academic libraries. Um, And how do you feel? Like sometimes I worry that if and I this maybe this sounds horrible the way I'm saying this. I don't mean to sound bad. I just worry sometimes that if there have been a lot of librarians that haven't been used to like embracing technology and integrating it like at the level that now that they're suddenly forced to because AI is spreading so significantly across the world. Like, is that do you see that as a concern, and is that something that's like exploding in great ways? And how does that look from what your perspective might be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. And I think my personal take is it's only a concern if we let ourselves get concerned about it. But if we
Mm,
take action and make the decision to step out and shape the way that AI changes libraries, then it could be an opportunity, or
yeah.
it could be, you know, it could be transformative in positive ways. That said, a lot of people are concerned, and I can understand where they're coming from because
Hmm.
it AI, it's not good at everything. And it's very bad at some things, but what it is good at has a lot of overlap with what libraries do. It's good at synthesizing very large amounts of information, categorizing very large amounts of information. Does it sometimes get that wrong? Yeah. Do humans sometimes get that wrong? Yeah. So I think the trepidation that people feel is very justified, especially when you bring into the mix some of the legitimate concerns like energy usage, data privacy, the profit motive that a lot of AI producers have. Um, and if you feel like you don't have a handle on how AI works or how to control for those things, it can be very disorienting to then try to make good
Yeah.
decisions about AI. So that's why I'm always talking to my teams and really pushing to say, this is our moment to step forward because
Mm,
either we as librarians step forward, we learn about the technology, we learn how to apply our values to the decision making, and we make choices about how we want it to impact our work or not, or it's going to make those decisions and it is going to impact our work, and it might do that in ways that we do not want.
mm.
So it's imperative that we step forward and
That was great. Oh, that was just perfectly said. I love that so much. Um, okay, a few more questions, and then we can wrap it up here. So, there's a lot of different areas that AI is impacting. I'm curious about what are you most passionate about with like categories that relate. So, like how it's impacting reading, writing, research, communication, collaboration, jobs, teaching, or education, or anything. So, out of all the possible topics that relate to AI, what are you most passionate about?
Hmm. Another great question. I think what excites me right now, and I'll say that with the caveat that AI is changing every day. So,
Right.
a month
Fast.
from now, 3 months from now, I might be excited about something completely different. But
Mhm.
something that I think about a lot right now and that I genuinely get excited about is the way that AI can augment communication. Um, and I use augment because I think it's really critical that as we talk about AI, we always think about how it as a tool can augment the work that we as humans are doing, and not replace it or outdo it, etc.
Mhm.
Um, but when I think about how AI augments communication, my husband is Greek, and Greek is his first language. So he's found it really useful to say, how would a native English speaker phrase something like this?
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's kind of a counterpoint to some of the complaints that people have about AIs
Hmm.
because it can be generic and it can reflect the fact that it's been trained on millions and millions and millions of documents found on the internet, which are not, they're not all going to be uh, Dostoevsky. But if you kind of flip that around and say, what are some situations where it's actually useful to have really straightforward communication or communication that resonates with the widest number of people, it's actually really good at that, and it can be really helpful in those type of contexts.
Well, I respect that and appreciate that so much because there's more and more momentum about learning how to collaborate with AI and partner, like use it to your advantage, human-centered first, of course, but this need to learn how to collaborate it. And when we're talking about communication and writing, especially, it is, yeah, it's the stereotype hot topic of, oh, AI is letting kids cheat on their essays, I mean, it's just that's been the hot topic since ChatGPT was released, and so many people that haven't been able to kind of keep up with changes and advancements and bigger picture thinking around it can get stuck on that. And it's not always black and white. It's can be a gray area to decide and define how might that look. And I think that for people that have more of a growth mindset and willingness to adapt, have to learn how to do that in a way that's maybe new to them. And it's just a challenge for a lot of people, but it's needed. We have no choice, I think.
Yeah. And I think similarly, like what goes hand in hand with that is, I don't know, I always liked, so about a year ago, I went to a seminar at MIT on AI and creativity, and it was all different researchers, not just from MIT, but from like tribal universities and everywhere, talking about the creative potential of AI. And something that I always think about from that seminar is like I do feel genuinely excited to see the ways that human creativity is going to grow and change. Because,
Hmm.
yeah, AI can create things. I would not say that it's creating great art, but it can create things, and that's going to push us as humans. Like, okay, how are we going to, I'm an artist, I like to draw, I write, and I really enjoy doing those things by myself, by my own hand. And so the emergence of generative AI has me thinking, okay, how am I going to push my own art so that it doesn't have any semblance to AI art?
Hmm.
How is it going to push me even further? And I think I don't know, there might be like an interesting growth in human creativity as a result
Hmm.
of trying to stay ahead, move
Yeah, yeah.
I can do.
Well, I'll piggyback on that real quickly, and then we can move on to the last question. Yeah, so I've been using Photoshop for since it started Photoshop number one, I think over 20 years ago, and I love graphic design. I don't consider myself at all a graphic designer, but I just really enjoy designing images, especially ones that relate to the library, and whether it's for printed posters or digital, all that kind of stuff. And um, so we have a vinyl printer, so we're able to print like wall murals, big stickers that stick on walls. And I worked with a couple, like I was very creative with using multiple AI tools, not just large language models, but a couple image-based tools that help me kind of plan and create a mural that was it's a slogan that said for this wall in the library where this printer is it's I wanted it to say MSB, that's our school's initials, Missouri School for the Blind, but I wanted to have the letters huge in the shape of a roller coaster. So, AI was able to help me. It took a while, but we were able to craft this that looked like an amusement park with a roller coaster in those letters, which of course is physically impossible to do that shape. Um, but then I took photos of some of the students, and so we made the mural. It covered the whole wall, and it looked really cool. It said, "Welcome to the MSB library. Buckle up for a wild ride." And then I took pictures of students like sitting in chairs with their arms up in the air, and then I used my iPhone to crop around the images, and then I brought those images into Photoshop with a big design and asked it to extend the background. Like I just all these creative possibilities that were never before possible with generative AI tools. Um, Kind of like because I have that concern too. Like, and a lot of people worry, like, is it going to stop people from using these skills and these tools that maybe they were using before? And I mean, I definitely think that if you have the right mindset, it can help you instead of like hinder you.
Yeah.
Um, But okay, last question. Can you give some advice for a new or aspiring librarian, someone that just started the field that's feeling a little bit overwhelmed with AI? Maybe they love books and they want to become a librarian, but now with AI, they're not too sure. Like, what advice might you give someone that's just getting started? And
I would say congratulations, you found a wonderful and fulfilling career. Um,
Mhm.
and as somebody who's been a librarian for about 20 years, it has been uh, such a wonderful journey. And for somebody who's just starting out, um, I would say lean into the fact that you're probably from a generation that is very tech savvy already and that is very conversant in the internet and conversant in social media. And those are exactly the skills that I think will help you to thrive in an AI-enabled environment. Um,
Mm,
but at the core of it, librarianship is about information. It's about connecting people with the information that they need in their lives to do their work, to bring them joy. And information can come in many forms. And so if we think of the information first and the people first, then the technology becomes a tool that we can use to connect people with information. Um, and I think as librarians, we want to embrace those technology tools, but we don't want to cede our power to them.
mm.
By which I mean ask questions, dig in, learn how technology tools work, and really get comfortable understanding what it takes to run your library and support the work that you do so that you can always keep those values that made you want to become a librarian in the first place at the center of all of your decision making.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. All right. If I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to kind of get in touch with you, maybe want to bring you in to speak or who knows what. How can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, I'm sure you could just Google me. But if you want to find me on LinkedIn, you can look up Heather Sardis. I'll probably still be at MIT, whether you're listening to this a year from now, or 10 years from now. And you can email me directly. My email is sardis, Sardis, at mit.edu.